guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about a case that I've seen all over social media. I've seen the body cam footage, I don't know how many times at this point. There's a lot going on, so let's get into it. Okay, so body cam video reveals chaotic scene of deputy fatally shooting Sonya Massey, who called 911 for help. Officials have released body camera video that reveals a chaotic scene in which a black woman in Springfield, Illinois, who called 911 for help, was shot in the face in her home by a white sheriff's deputy. Now, to frame how cut and dry I think this case is, when I first came across the video, I had no context. I just knew there was a woman in her house and that the cops were there. I had no other context whatsoever, and even then, it was so obviously out of line what happened. So when I read all of this, take into account that the video, which I'll show you with a trigger warning, it was obvious from the get-go. Like, knowing next to nothing, you can tell some fucked up shit is going on. Sonya Massey ducked and apologized to an Illinois sheriff's deputy seconds before he shot the black woman 3 times in her home with one fatal blow to the head, as seen in body camera video released Monday. An Illinois grand jury indicted former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson, 30, who is white, last week. He has pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. The video confirmed prosecutors' earlier account of the tense moment when Grayson yelled from across the counter at Massey to set down a pot of hot water. He then threatened to shoot her. Massey ducked, briefly rose, and Grayson fired his pistol at her. Authorities said Massey, 36, had called 911 earlier to report a suspected prowler. The video shows the 2 deputies responded just before 1 a.m. on July 6th at her home in Springfield, 200 miles southwest of Chicago. They first walked around the house and found a black SUV with broken windows in the driveway. It took Massey 3 minutes to open the door after deputies knocked, and she immediately said, "Don't hurt me." She seemed confused as they spoke at the door, and she repeated that she needed help, referenced God, and told them she didn't know who owned the car. There are a couple things worth noting here, in my opinion. So the God references, we're going to get to all of that because there is some mental illness factoring in. However, putting that aside for the moment, I think it's kind of normal that you'd be afraid of opening the door if you don't know who the fuck is there, and if you feel like someone's trying to break in, that there's a prowler or whatever. I know that I'd probably be on edge and freaked out, so I don't know about all of that, what the police is supposed to do, and whether that's even really suspicious that someone would take a second before opening the door. She seemed confused as they spoke at the door, and she repeated that she needed help. Inside the house, deputies seemed exasperated as she sat on her couch and went through her purse as they asked for identification to complete a report before leaving. Then Grayson pointed out a pot sitting on a flame on the stove. "We don't need a fire while we're here," he said. Massey immediately got up and went to the stove, moving the pot near a sink. She and Grayson seemed to share a laugh over her pan of steaming hot water before she unexpectedly said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." "You better fucking not, or I swear to God I'll fucking shoot you in your fucking face." He then pulled his 9mm pistol and demanded she drop the pot. Massey said, "Okay, I'm sorry." In Grayson's body cam footage, he pointed his weapon at her, she ducked and raised her hands. So there's a very, very quick escalation, and it's obvious in the video as well. That's part of why I had to rewatch it, because I kept thinking I'd missed something, which I did not. The fact that they went from haha, we don't need a fire, to feeling threatened by her with a pot of water. Now granted, saying "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus" is alarming because you're like, okay, I don't know what this person intends on doing. That being said, you, the police, are far enough away from her. There's a counter in between you guys, and you could also just tell her to drop the pot, or I don't know, move out of the way, back up. Shooting in the head for a pot of boiling water, like, I get it's boiling, but in any scenario I come up with in my head of like, how does this make sense? I cannot make it make sense. So I actually do want to show the footage here. So I'm going to put a trigger warning. I will put a timestamp if you do want to skip it, but I do think it's important for context to see what actually happened, also for what happens after.
Yeah, you have an ID, that'd make things so much easier. I just need just driver's license will do, and then I'll get out of your hair.
I want to show y'all my paperwork.
I will get your paperwork.
What paperwork?
I got some paperwork.
Well, just get your ID real quick.
Well, let's get your ID first, and then...
One task at a time here.
Okay. Let me
Here, grab your ID for me.
Hold on. Okay.
Your ID. One task at a time. So let's do an ID, and then you can dig around for your paperwork.
I don't know where my ID is.
You see in that stack right there, maybe?
1 second.
Just check on her.
Let me get this.
We don't need a fire while we're here.
Right. Let me see. Okay. Where you going?
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Huh?
Rebuke you in the name of
You better fucking not. I swear to God, I'll fucking shoot you right in your fucking face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the fucking pot! Drop the fucking pot! Drop the fucking pot!
19 shots fired.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Drop the fucking pot! Bring EMS now. We got a headshot wound to the female. Headshot wound to the female. 1078. Fuck.
I was on. I'm gonna go get my kit.
No, headshot, dude. She's done. You can go get it, but that's a headshot. God damn it.
God, fuck.
Grayson was still in the living room facing Massey and separated by a counter dividing the living room and the kitchen. Prosecutors have said the separation allowed Grayson both distance and relative cover from Massey and the pot of hot water. After Grayson shot her, Grayson discouraged his partner from grabbing a medical kit to save her. "You can go get it, but that's a headshot," he said. "There's nothing you can do, man." He added, "What else do we do? I'm not taking hot fucking boiling water to the fucking face." Noting that Massey was still breathing, he relented and said he would get his kit too. The other deputy said, "We can at least try to stop the bleeding." Grayson told responding police she had boiling water and came at me with boiling water. She said she was going to rebuke me in the name of Jesus and came at me with boiling water. During a Monday afternoon news conference, the family's lawyer, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, called Grayson's revisionist justification disingenuous. She needed a helping hand. She did not need a bullet to her face, Crump said of Massey. So also the summary of what happened that Grayson is giving is not accurate. She was holding a pot that she was taking off the flame because you guys said you didn't need a fire in the house. She didn't run at you with it. Like, there was no actual action. So the way that this is all framed, to me, says you realized you fucked up and you needed a more compelling story as to why you shot someone in the head. That's all it is. There's nothing more complicated as far as what I saw in the clip and what's being said here. I think it's obvious you figured out you really fucked up. Also, the fact that you didn't even want to initially try to take care of her wound. I don't know. What he said after just being like, "What are we gonna do?" I was just like, really? That's it? I don't know. Asked why Massey told Grayson, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," Crump said she had undergone treatment for mental health issues. He noted that she invoked God's name from the beginning of the encounter and asked for her Bible after the deputies stepped inside. During Massey's funeral on Friday, Crump said the video, which he and the family had already viewed, would shock the conscience of America. Massey's father, James Wilburn, demanded the court system be completely open with its investigation and prosecution and transparent with the public. "The only time I will see my baby again is when I leave this world," Wilburn said. "And I don't ever want anybody else in the United States to join this league." Grayson, who was fired last week, is being held in the Sangamon County Jail without bond. If convicted, he faces prison sentences of 45 years to life for murder, 6 to 30 years for battery, and 2 to 5 years for misconduct. His lawyer, Daniel Fultz, declined to comment Monday. I don't really know what you could comment anyway, but in a statement, President Joe Biden said he and First Lady Jill Biden were praying for Massey's family as they face this unthinkable and senseless loss. "When we call for help, all of us Americans, regardless of who we are and where we live, should be able to do so without fearing for our lives," Biden said. Sonya's death at the hands of a responding officer reminds us that all too often Black Americans face fears for their safety in ways many of the rest of us do not. Then I can link the article, but the rest of the article talks about other crimes that are similar to the one against Massey and Massey's death, and I just want to focus on Massey here, so it'll be linked if you're interested. Okay, so in my eyes, this is murder, and as someone who chooses to be a police officer, I would hope that someone would not be that type of jumpy around a gun, because the argument I'm seeing online, which not many people are backing up Grayson, but the people who are like, oh, well, you know, like he probably freaked out. She might have turned, the fact that she mentioned God, blah, blah, blah. So there was mental illness to factor in for God and the mention of God, blah, blah, blah. That might be unnerving. But again, we also need to remember whomst the fuck was called. She didn't call her neighbor. She didn't call me. She called the cops. So in my mind, it's also like, okay, I don't know what the protocol is for the police, mind you, but if you think someone is that mentally unwell, that you're scared for your life, that they're gonna throw a pot of water in your face, is there no one you can call up? Like, I don't know if the ambulance comes with people who are equipped to deal with someone who's like a psychological kind of risk, or someone who has psych problems. Like, there's no one you can call. There's no concept of backup. There's none of that. Like, none of this came up before any gun thing. Or at that point, you also just could have told her to turn off the fucking stove and leave the pot where it was. Why wasn't that? Like, there's so many scenarios here, and granted, when you're there, I'm sure it's more stressful, anxiety-inducing, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, this is your entire job. This is what you're trained for. So you don't really have the luxury of writing anything and everything off, let alone someone's life, with freaking out or whatever else the nut jobs on the internet are trying to use to cover this murder. So you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. I really hope this person does get a serious sentence, because this should be, a lot of other things should have been a wake-up call, to be honest, but hopefully if there is a wake-up call, this is it, because genuinely it just seems like at this point, apart all of the racial implications, which we can have a discussion about, if we're even just looking at the facts, it's like, this is poor training. You guys tell me what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.